I'm Shay Russell from mining.com.au, and joining me today is Ivan Fairhall, the Managing Director for Pivotal Metals. Ivan, it's fabulous to see you again. How are you?
I'm great, Shay. Great to see you again.
We are certainly in interesting times for the copper market, and we're going to get to a couple of things that are happening there in a moment. First of all, we've got to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is there is a report from East Coast Research that came out putting a price target on Pivotal Metals of 3.3 cents, which is a significant increase on the current price today. Mate, tell me about it. Are you really this undervalued?
In a word, yes. Right. Look, the research report's a great note. It's a very clear articulation of what makes Pivotal a fantastic opportunity. They cover the significance of our technical work. You know, we've done things like met test work that's de-risked the revenue side of a really great discovery that's been made. The significant resource update we put out, and also those EM targets that underwrite huge exploration upside on the property. We've got high-grade gold at BAGB with additional very high-grade copper nickel PGM discovery potential. There's a lot going on in our company, and the market valuation really doesn't reflect the opportunity at all. And this report just simply lays out that. And yeah, look, it's a very punchy price target, but that's how undervalued, we're not alone, but that's how undervalued these opportunities are. So yeah, very exciting, and they also, as you say, touch on a bit about copper sector M&A, which I think really adds a layer to all of this.
Speaking of topical happening in the copper market, I hope you've got a little bit more information than I do. There is currently some sort of M&A happening with New World Copper. Can you elaborate on this? But also, too, does this have like a bigger bearing of what's happening across the copper sector?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think there's a lot of read across in the market response to sort of interest in our story and what's going on with New World Copper's Antler. I don't know exactly what's going on. I think we're about to shortly find out, or maybe it will be clearer by the time this goes to air. But there's clearly a bidding war going on. And in my view, that was inevitable. These projects they've got a production capacity of around 30,000 tonnes of copper equivalent, about 16,000 tonnes of copper. These are the kind of assets that they're going to form the mid-tier mines of the future. They're developable. They've got a decent production scale that they can be built. CapEx, permitting, all of these things tick. They're in great jurisdictions. Now, that's a similar production profile to what I believe Horden Lake is capable of. We're in Québec, open pittable. There's a lot of parallels. And look, I spent a chunk of my career in a PE fund, very similar to who I think is the emerging bidder for Antler, a group called Quintera. And it's no coincidence that Horden Lake is where I've chosen to take my career towards, because the opportunity for me is really obvious about where the copper sector is heading. There's a lot of M&A happening across the sector. Production, building up that production profile is becoming increasingly important as the market continues to mature, and so this is a sort of an obvious way for it to play out, but it's exciting nonetheless for New World Copper shareholders and really all of the copper.
Speaking of Horden Lake, let's talk about an announcement that you put out on the 19th of June. More good results for step out drilling. Tell me, how does this relate to the project overall?
Yeah, so these are important results. They are step out drilling. So we stepped out about 500-600 meters to the southwest along our deposit. So the Horden Lake deposit's really clearly defined on this sort of contact zone. And we did a bunch of, I mentioned the EM that we did, and one of the conductors that showed up, one of many conductors in fact, but one of the conductors showed up was this shallow anomaly right along strike from the Horden Lake deposit. Very curious that it had never been drilled, but they'd never done this kind of surveys before. So it was an obvious place for us to go drilling. We put about 1,500 meters into that drill target. We've intersected high grades within wide zones of mineralization. It's shallow. I think there's real open pit potential. And so adding open pit, you remember from our resource update, the open pits become quite large, and we're looking to just continue to add open pit tons on that as really the initial value that you can bring into the project. And so that's growth potential on what is already a substantial resource. So that's important. And the other kind of takeaway from this is the EM conductors. I mean, we, based on the mineralization, we don't have anything else that we have seen that is conductive that's not mineralized. So where we see a conductor, we think it's mineralized. here is a great example of that. That was a conductor that's effectively blind. There was a couple of drill holes around it. Drill it, mineralized. What does that tell you about the rest of the conductors? And what we know about those other conductors is there actually higher conductivity. This was the shallowest, so it was an obvious place for us to drill, but the deeper conductors below Horden Lake up to 3 times higher conductivity. And these are huge areas that have never seen a drill hole. So, the old saying, the best place to find a mine is next to a mine. I think that's all playing out here on what's a very productive mineral system that's still got a lot of room to move.
It's certainly an excellent story unfolding for Pivotal Metals. Listen, Ivan, I really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to future updates.
Thanks, Shay. It's nice to speak.